The Great Hall of Harmony Prime buzzed with voices from across the galaxy. Hundreds of different alien species sat in floating chairs that moved through the air like gentle clouds. Their translator devices hummed softly, turning strange clicks and growls into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Velthor stepped forward. His green scales caught the light as he raised his forearms toward the ceiling. The room grew quiet. Behind him, a huge screen appeared in the air, glowing with soft blue light. "My friends," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "we have found something very strange on the dead worlds at the edge of our galaxy." The screen showed old stone tablets covered in weird symbols. Some were broken and cracked. Others looked like they had been burned by fire. There were pieces of metal, too, all twisted and black, with words carved deep into their surface. "These warnings are everywhere," Velthar continued. "On planets that died thousands of years ago, in languages that no one speaks anymore, but they all say the same thing." The symbols on the screen changed into words that everyone could read. "Do not wake the sleeping giant. Stay away from the third world of Sol. When Earth moves, stars die. The children of Terra bring only death." A creature with long purple tentacles for arms waved them in the air. This was Dr. Kanara, the smartest scientist in the galaxy. She made a sound like laughing. "These are just old stories," she said. "Fairy tales that scared children long ago. Dead civilizations always made up monsters to explain things they did not understand." Across the room, War Commander Breakdole leaned forward in his metal chair. He was huge and covered in thick armor that looked like it had seen many battles. His red eyes glowed as he spoke. "Our spy ships have been to this Sol system," he growled. "The third planet is full of weak creatures that can barely fly to their own moon. They fight each other with primitive weapons. They know nothing about traveling between stars." Other voices joined in. The aliens nodded their heads, or wiggled their tentacles, or made whatever movement meant yes for their species. "Mining company wants to dig up their planet," Breakdole continued. "It has good metals and water, yet the humans will not be able to stop us." An old alien with silver skin stood up slowly. His name was Elder Quinter, and he was older than anyone else in the room. His voice was like wind through dry leaves. "In all my years, I have learned that old warnings usually come from old pain," he said quietly. "Perhaps we should think more carefully about this." But the other aliens were not listening. They were already thinking about the riches they could take from Earth, the metals, the water, the land, for new colonies. The humans seemed so weak and divided. Dr. Kanara pulled up more pictures on the screen. "Look at these symbols more closely," she said. "They talk about humans like they are gods of war. This is clearly impossible. Our scouts show they still use chemical rockets. They have not even learned to bend space for travel." The voting began. One by one, each alien species raised their hands or tentacles or claws to show their choice. The count was easy to see on the big screen. Every single species voted the same way. Earth would be marked as a Class 7 primitive world. This meant the Quithcock could take whatever they wanted. The humans would be given simple jobs or moved to reservation areas. It was decided far away on the small blue planet they were talking about. A man named Ginho Kim sat in front of a huge radio telescope. It was late at night and he was tired. Coffee cups and empty food containers covered his desk. He had been listening to space for 12 hours straight. His computer screen suddenly lit up with new signals. Strange patterns of energy were coming from the edge of the solar system. The signals were too organized to be natural, but too far away to be from Earth. Ginho rubbed his eyes and looked closer. The patterns seemed almost like ... code, like someone was sending messages. But that was impossible. There was nothing out there but empty space and cold rocks. He thought about calling his boss, but it was 3 a.m. These weird signals probably did not mean anything important. Space was full of strange radio waves and energy bursts. Most of them turned out to be nothing. Ginho typed a few notes into his computer and marked the signals as background radiation. Investigate later. Then he turned off his equipment and went home to sleep. He had no idea that far above Earth, in the cold darkness between planets, old machines were waking up. Machines that had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for a signal that had finally come. The signal was simple. Strangers were coming to Earth with bad intentions. Deep. In space, ancient computer minds began to calculate. Weapon systems ran diagnostic tests. Ship engines that had been cold for millennia started to warm up. The galaxy had made its choice. Soon, they would learn why the old warnings existed. But for now, Earth slept peacefully under its blanket of stars, unaware that everything was about to change. The Korthok warships appeared at the edge of the solar system like dark shadows against the stars. Captain Nekenar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the small yellow sun in the distance. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction. Finally, he growled to his crew, "An easy job for once. We'll be back home with full cargo holds before the next moon cycle." But something was wrong. His ship's computers were making worried beeping sounds. The screen in front of him showed dozens of objects floating in space around the outer planets. They were too big to be natural rocks, but too organized to be random junk. "What am I looking at?" Dekenar asked his science officer. The smaller alien checked his instruments twice before answering. "Sir, these appear to be ... defense stations and patrol ships. Lots of them." Dekenar's thick armor made grinding sounds as he leaned forward. "That cannot be right. Our scout said these humans can barely reach their own moon." More red lights began flashing on the control panels. The ships they were looking at moved in perfect formation, like fish swimming together in a school. Their hulls were smooth and white, nothing like the rough, battle-scarred Korthok vessels. "Send them the usual message," Dekenar ordered. "Tell them we come in peace and want to make a deal." The communication officer pressed buttons on his console. A message went out in the standard galactic language, offering Earth protection in exchange for mining rights and land for colonies. It was the same message the Korthok had sent to hundreds of primitive worlds. The answer came back faster than should have been possible. The transmission was clear and strong with no static or delay. Someone on Earth was using communication technology that rivaled their own. "Attention Korthok vessels," the voice said in perfect galactic standard. "You are not welcome in this system. Leave immediately. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Dekenar's crew looked at each other with confusion. Primitive planets were supposed to be scared when the mighty Korthok arrived. They were supposed to beg for mercy. Not give orders? Did they just ... threaten us?" asked the weapons officer. Dekenar felt anger burning in his chest. No primitive world had ever dared to speak to the Korthok this way. It was time to teach these humans a lesson about respect. "Move our scout ships toward their largest planet," he commanded. "When they see our firepower, they will change their tone quickly." 3 Korthok scout ships moved deeper into the solar system. They passed the gas giant called Jupiter, heading toward the inner planets where Earth waited. But they were not alone. White human ships moved to block their path. The human vessels were smaller than the Korthok ships, but they moved like living things. They twisted and turned through space in ways that should have been impossible. Their engines left no visible trail. "They are just trying to look scary," Dekenar told his crew. "Fire one shot at their lead ship. Show them what real weapons can do." The Korthok scout ship charged its main cannon. The weapon could punch through the armor of any known warship. A beam of pure energy lanced out across space, bright enough to blind anyone looking directly at it. The human ship seemed to shimmer like water. The deadly energy beam struck something invisible around the ship's hull and scattered into harmless light. The human vessel did not even slow down. "Impossible," whispered the science officer. The human ship's response was swift and terrible. Weapons that the Korthok had never seen before reached out like invisible hands. The scout ship's armor, strong enough to withstand meteor impacts, began to melt like ice in a fire. "All ships, open fire," Dekenar screamed. The battle lasted less than 1 minute. The Korthok ships fired everything they had at the humans. Plasma cannons, missile swarms, particle beams, all their most powerful weapons. The human ships moved through the attack like ghosts, untouched and untouchable. When the humans fired back, Korthok ships simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no wreckage floating in space. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone, as if they had never been built at all. Decanar watched his proud fleet disappear ship by ship. These were not the primitive humans his scouts had described. These were something else entirely, something that had been hiding in the dark. Waiting. Retreat, he ordered. All ships emergency jump to hyperspace. Only half of his fleet escaped. As his ship prepared to flee, Decanar sent one final message back to the Korthok homeworld. His voice shook with fear and rage. The intelligence was wrong. The humans are not primitive. They have been pretending, hiding their true strength. The ancient warnings were real. The sleeping giant is awake, and it is very, very angry. His ship disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind. But the damage was done. For the first time in thousands of years, someone had attacked Earth and lived to tell about it. In the depths of space, more human ships began to move. They came from hidden bases between the stars, from colonies that officially did not exist, from places the galaxy had forgotten long ago. The humans were no longer hiding. The galaxy was about to remember why they had been afraid. News of the Korthok defeat spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On every civilized world, emergency meetings were called. Military leaders stared at battle recordings that made no sense. Scientists studied weapon signatures they had never seen before. Dr. Kanara had not slept for 3 days. Her laboratory was a mess of scattered papers and glowing screens. The ancient artifacts she had dismissed as fairy tales now surrounded her like accusing ghosts. She picked up one of the stone tablets with shaking tentacles. "Computer, translate this symbol again," she whispered. The machine's voice was calm and precise. Translation: they came from the darkness between stars. Their ships were white as bone, silent as death.
Ah!
When they spoke, worlds listened. When they fought, suns died. Kinara dropped the tablet. It hit the floor with a sound like breaking hope. She had been wrong. Terribly, catastrophically wrong. These were not myths or scary stories told around ancient campfires. They were historical records. Survivor accounts from civilizations that had faced humanity before and lived to warn others. Another tablet caught her eye. This one was newer, made from metal instead of stone.
Nice.
The symbols were different, but the message was the same. Translation: the humans ruled half the galaxy once. They built cities inside stars and made homes in the hearts of gas giants. It could stop them. Nothing could hide from them. Then one day they just ... left. Kanara's computer began pulling up more files, thousands of them. Archaeological records from dead worlds throughout the galaxy, all telling the same impossible story. 10,000 years ago, humanity had exploded across the stars in a wave of expansion that put every other species to shame. They did not just visit new worlds, they transformed them. Planets that were too hot, too cold, or filled with poisonous gas became garden. Worlds under human hands, they built space elevators that reached from planet surfaces to orbital rings. They carved tunnels through the cores of moons. They turned asteroid belts into vast manufacturing centers that produced wonders beyond imagination. But the most frightening thing about the humans was not their technology. It was how they fought. Computer, show me the battle records from the Zarian War. Images filled the air around Kanara. Ancient ships locked in combat, explosions lighting up the darkness of space. But as she watched, she realized something horrible. The human ships were not just winning, they were perfect. Every shot hit its target. Every movement was calculated for maximum effect. They fought like machines, but with the creativity of living minds. Translation of Zarian final transmission: they do not make war. They perform surgery. They cut out exactly what they want to remove and leave everything else untouched. We surrender not because we cannot fight, but because fighting them is like fighting mathematics itself. The files showed more battles, more defeats. Every species that had ever fought humanity described the same thing. The humans did not get angry or make mistakes. They simply solved the problem of their enemies with the same efficiency they used to solve everything else. Then, for reasons lost to history, they had stopped. The great human empire had packed up and gone home to their small blue world. They destroyed their own colonies, shut down their mighty factories, and pretended to be primitive again. But why, Kanara asked the empty room? Why would they give up half the galaxy? The answer came from the oldest tablet of all, one so ancient that its symbols were barely visible. The translation made her blood run cold. They grew tired of being gods. The humans said they would sleep until the galaxy needed them again. We pray that day never comes. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Soman Park stood in a room that did not officially exist. Hidden beneath the Swiss mountains, the Global Command Center was coming alive for the first time in centuries. Screens covered every wall, showing star maps that revealed the true extent of human presence in the galaxy. "Status report," she said. To the technician at the central console, "Ma'am, we have established contact with 47 colonies and 17 deep space installations. All report ready status. The sleeper ships in the void sectors are warming their engines. Our manufacturing bases are coming online." Salman nodded slowly. For 10,000 years, humanity had maintained the illusion of being a single-world species. Meanwhile, hidden colonies had continued to grow and develop in secret. Deep space factories had built ships and weapons that made Earth's best technology look like stone tools. "What about the memory cores?" she asked. "All intact, ma'am. Every tactical database, every technological specification, every lesson learned from our first expansion. We remember everything." Admiral Minsu Lee approached with a tablet in his hands. His face was grim. "The Galactic Council is mobilizing. They are scared, and scared creatures do stupid things." Salman looked at the star map showing enemy fleet movements. Thousands of alien ships were gathering at rally points throughout the galaxy. They were preparing for war against an enemy they did not understand. "Send a message to all our hidden assets," she ordered. "Tell them to prepare for full activation. The galaxy forgot why they feared us once. It seems they need a reminder." Outside, the people of Earth went about their normal lives, unaware that their quiet planet was about to become the center of a galactic storm. But in the depths of space, ancient machines were awakening. Ships that had waited in the cold darkness for millennia were checking their weapons and preparing to fly. The galaxy had made its choice. Now they would face the consequences. The secret meeting took place in the deepest part of Harmony Prime, where no recording devices were allowed. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a table made from solid crystal, their faces lit by emergency lights that cast strange shadows on the walls. Supreme Admiral Zekthorn slammed his metal fist on the table. "Every day we wait makes them stronger. My scouts report human ships appearing in systems where no humans should exist. They have been hiding among us for thousands of years." Elder Quinter shook his silver head slowly. "This is madness. We should try to talk with them first. Find out what they want." "And we know what they want," growled War Commander Breakdole. "They want their empire back. The archaeological records are clear. They once controlled half the galaxy. Do you think they will be satisfied with just their small blue world?" The debate went on for hours, but fear won in the end. The vote was close, but enough species agreed. They would strike first, before humanity could fully wake up from its long sleep, the largest war fleet in Galactic. History began gathering at Rally Point Omega. Ships came from every corner of known space. Battle cruisers that could crack moons, carrier ships filled with fighter craft, and massive dreadnoughts that had never been defeated. Admiral Torvek stood on the bridge of the flagship, Galaxy's pride, and watched the fleet assemble. Over 1,000 warships, representing the combined might of 40 different species. Nothing could stand against such power. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The assault on Earth began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace, in perfect formation, surrounding the small blue planet like a metal net. They expected to find a world defended by primitive weapons and desperate humans. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. Earth's moon suddenly split open like a flower, revealing massive weapon batteries that had been hidden inside it for millennia. The planet's orbital stations, which had looked like simple communication satellites, unfolded into death machines that filled space with deadly light. But the real surprise came from Earth itself. The surface erupted with defensive installations that rose from hidden underground bunkers. Weapons that could reach across the solar system began firing in perfect coordination. Admiral Torvex watched his frontline ships disappear in silence. No explosions, no debris fields. They simply ceased to exist, as if they had been erased from reality itself. All ships, concentrate fire on the planet's surface, he screamed into his communicator. The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons that could melt continents, gravity bombs that could crush cities, and viral weapons that killed all life. The attack was powerful enough to destroy a dozen worlds. Earth's shields absorbed it all. The planet glowed like a small star for a moment, then the light faded. The world below was completely undamaged. Then the human reinforcements arrived. Ships appeared from hyperspace with designs that were unmistakably human, but technology that was beyond anything the aliens had ever seen. These vessels moved like living creatures, their hulls flowing and changing shape as they flew. Captain Hannah Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship, Terra's Vengeance, and watched the alien fleet through her view screen. Her ship was one of the newer models, built in the hidden factories of the void sectors. Its artificial intelligence was more advanced than most organic brains. "Signal all human ships," she said calmly. "Execute Protocol Omega. Show them what we learned in the darkness." The human counterattack was swift and merciless. They did not just fight the alien ships, they hunted them. Human vessels appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from impossible angles with weapons that defied understanding. The aliens tried to retreat, but found their escape routes blocked. Human ships had surrounded the entire system while they were focusing on Earth. There was nowhere to run. Admiral Torvex watched his mighty fleet being torn apart piece by piece. The humans were not just winning, they were demonstrating their superiority. Some alien ships found themselves captured intact, their crews put into deep sleep, and their computers downloaded. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How did they become so powerful?" Science officer, a creature with 6 eyes and blue skin, checked his instruments with shaking hands. "Sir, I am detecting human ships throughout the galaxy. They are attacking our homeworlds, our shipyards, our military bases." This was not just an attack. It was a coordinated campaign. The truth was worse than any nightmare. While the aliens had been gathering their fleet for the assault on Earth, humanity had been preparing their own surprise. Hidden ships had moved into position around every major military installation in the galaxy. The strikes came simultaneously. Korthok shipyards burst into flames. The Gemini fleet bases simply vanished, leaving only empty space where mighty fortresses had once stood. The aliens' ability to make war was being systematically destroyed. On Earth, President Soman Park watched the battle reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The plan was working perfectly. Humanity was not just defending itself, it was sending a message that would echo through history. "Status report," she asked her military advisor. "Ma'am, enemy resistance is collapsing. Their main fleet is destroyed, and their support infrastructure is 70% eliminated. We estimate total victory within 6 hours." Soman nodded grimly. "And casualties on our side?" "Minimal, ma'am. The enemy never had a chance." The galaxy was learning why the ancient warnings existed. Humanity had not grown weak during its long sleep. It had grown patient, careful, and absolutely deadly. The age of galactic peace was over. The age of human dominance had begun again. The surrender flags arrived at Earth 18 months after the war began. Not because the fighting lasted that long, but because it took that much time for the surviving alien leaders to accept what had happened to their galaxy. The great ships that came to Earth were not warships. They were hospital vessels and refugee transports, filled with the broken remains of once mighty civilizations. The aliens who had voted to attack humanity now came as beggars, asking only for mercy. Secretary General Ji-Soo Kim received the alien delegates in the rebuilt United Nations building in New York. The meeting room was simple and plain, with white walls and basic furniture. After seeing the impossible weapons and technology that humanity possessed, the aliens expected to meet in some grand palace. Instead, they found themselves sitting at an ordinary wooden table. "Come to surrender," said what remained of the Galactic Council. The speaker was Ambassador Velfair, but he looked nothing like the proud creature who had dismissed the ancient warnings. His scales were dull and gray, his forearms shaking with exhaustion. Gi-Soo Kim studied the aliens across from her. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but everyone in the room could feel the power she represented. Behind her stood advisors who had planned the destruction of galactic civilization with the same care most people use to plan dinner. "We do not want your surrender," she said quietly. "We want your promise that this will never happen again." Human demands were simple, but absolute. All aggressive species would reduce their military forces to police levels only. Human monitoring stations would be placed in every star system. A new galactic government would be formed with human oversight. To prevent future conflicts, "You will keep your worlds, your cultures, your freedom," Gi-Soo continued. "But you will never again threaten another species with extinction. The galaxy has been at peace for 10,000 years because we were sleeping. Now that we are awake, we will make sure that peace continues." Dr. Kanara, who had spent months studying the archaeological evidence, raised one of her tentacles nervously. What about ... What about justice? Many of our people were killed in the fighting." Geis's expression did not change. "Our people died because they chose to attack a peaceful world. Our people died defending their homes. There is a difference." The truth was simple but terrible. Humanity had not just won the war, they had rewritten the rules of galactic civilization overnight. Species that had ruled star systems for thousands of years now found themselves taking orders from creatures they had considered primitive only months before. But the humans were not cruel rulers. They were efficient ones. Admiral Sung-Ho Park stood on the observation deck of Terra Station, the massive space fortress that now orbited Earth like a second moon. Through the transparent metal windows, he could see human ships coming and going. In all directions, some carried supplies to rebuild damaged worlds. Others transported human colonists to establish new settlements throughout the galaxy. "Status report," he asked his aide, a young woman named Lieutenant Hyeri Shin. "Sir, Colony Ship 7 has reached the Andorian system and begun construction of New Sol. The mining operation in the Korthok home system is ahead of schedule, and we have received communication from the deep space exploration fleets. They have made contact with 3 new species beyond the galactic rim." Sung-Ho nodded. The galaxy was changing rapidly under human guidance. Dead worlds were being brought back to life. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. Trade routes that had been closed by ancient grudges were reopening. "What about resistance?" he asked. "Minimal, sir. There was an incident in the Outer Rim where some hegemony survivors tried to restart their military. Colonel Jin Wuhan's task force dealt with it. No human casualties." The message was clear throughout the galaxy. Humanity would tolerate no threats, no matter how small. Species that tried to rebuild their war machines found those weapons turned to slag before they could even be tested. Leaders who spoke of revenge simply disappeared, replaced by more reasonable individuals. But for those who accepted the new order, life improved dramatically. Human technology began spreading to allied species. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for centuries were cured within months. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable became garden paradises under human turful in her laboratory on Harmony Prime. Dr. Kanara worked with human scientists to preserve the ancient warnings, but now they were writing new ones. Updating the old messages with current information, the new warnings were simple and direct. The children of Terra are awake. They remember everything. They have returned to their rightful place as guardians of galactic peace. Do not test their patience. Do not threaten their allies. Do not make them remind you why the galaxy feared them. On Earth, children played in parks while their parents worked in offices and factories. Most humans went about their daily lives. without thinking much about the fact that their species now controlled half the galaxy. For them, the war had been something that happened far away, fought by other people. But in the deep space monitoring stations, human officers watched for signs of trouble. In hidden shipyards throughout the galaxy, new vessels were built and stored against future need. The galaxy was at peace, but humanity would never sleep again. The ancient cycle had been broken. For 10,000 years, humanity had withdrawn and the galaxy had forgotten. Then someone would threaten Earth and the humans would wake up angry. And terrible, this time was different. This time, humanity would stay awake. They would guide the galaxy toward a better future, protecting it from threats both within and without. The age of human guardianship had begun, and it would last until the stars themselves grew cold.